let's have distance between 2 points. So example, draw a line connecting the points A, which has a rectangular coordinates negative 2 and 3, and B, which has a rectangular coordinates positive 1 and negative 1. So the instruction says that we are to draw a line connecting these 2 points. So say we have this line connecting these 2 points. Pardon if my line is not that straight. Okay, showing that this is a straight line connecting points A, B. Okay. Now, we are to find the measure of this line segment AB. So, how are we going to find the measure or the distance or the length between these 2 points A and B? So, this is our main problem here, to find the distance or the length between these 2 points. Okay. Now, we are to invoke the Pythagorean Theorem. Are you familiar with Pythagorean Theorem? So what is that Pythagorean Theorem? Pythagorean Theorem in honor of the Greek mathematician Pythagoras. The Pythagorean Theorem states that for any right triangle, take note of the condition, for any right triangle, the square of the measure of its hypotenuse, say we have hypotenuse, the longest side of the triangle, the square of the measure of this hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the other legs. So say one leg is A square and the other leg is B and square. So this is the Pythagorean theorem. Now, can we sketch a right triangle using these points A and B? How is that possible? Okay, so we will sketch a vertical line using point A. So say this is our vertical line, making use of point A. And sketch a horizontal line making use of point B. So this is point B. And so we have this third point on the plane. And we'll label this point as point, we'll make use of point C. Okay. Where point C has an rectangular coordinate. What do you think is the rectangular coordinate of point C? It's negative 2, negative 1. Because it's in the third quadrant. So this is a right triangle. And so we can use Pythagorean Theorem to solve for the length between, or the distance between 2 points A and B. Okay, so we have, so our hypotenuse, we label that as C square is equal to. Now we need to determine the the length of leg A and the length of leg B in order for us to solve for the measure of the hypotenuse C. So say the distance between points C and B is A, and the distance between points A and C is B. Now, by analyzing the graph of these 3 points on the rectangular coordinate system or in the Cartesian plane, the measure of leg A is 3 units. How did I get 3 units? So from point C to point B, that is 3 units away. Or point C is 3 units away from B. Conversely, point B is 3 units away from C. Okay? Kasi dito natin makikita, yung distance ng dalawa ay nasa x-axis. Yung distance na ito papunta yung distance ng point na to going to this point is 3. Kasi that is 1, 2, and 3. Therefore, our A is 3 squared. Plus, what do you think is the length or the distance between point A and point C? Okay? So, analyze lang yung Cartesian plane natin. So, yung distance ng points A and C ay madedetermine natin using the points on the y-axis. So, yung distance from here, yung distance ng point na to going to this point, that is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, if we start from here, it's the same. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Therefore, leg B is 4 raised to the power of 2. Okay, solving further, we get C squared is equal to 9 plus 16. C squared is equal to 25. And squaring both sides of the equation, we get C is equal to, mathematically speaking, we get two values, plus minus 5. But since we are talking about distance, wala pong negative na distance, so we get C equal to 5. Therefore, the measure or the distance between point A and point B is 5 units. Okay. But what if hindi ganito yung scale ng ating triangle, sorry. What if mas malaki pa dito yung scale ng ating triangle? Is it possible to use this method na ginawa natin kanina na binilang lang yung distance between 2 points using the x-axis and the y-axis? That's possible. However, that takes time. So, medyo tedious yung work natin. Okay? So, gagamit tayo ngayon ng isa pang method para mas mapadali yung pag-solve natin. This other method that I am talking will give us the same answer. Okay. So, again, balik tayo sa definition ng Pythagorean Theorem. So, Pythagorean Theorem states that C square is equal to A square plus B square. Okay? Now, this time, instead of letter C or variable C, we'll make use of D square. Okay, why D? Because we are talking about distance. So, arbitrary lang itong mga variables na to. So, si C, ginawa lang natin na D. Kasi we are talking of distance. So, distance is D square is equal to A square plus B square. Okay. So, we have D squaring, getting the square root of both sides of the equation, we get D is equal to the square root of A squared plus B squared. Haba ng line. Okay, now ngayon. So, A squared refers to this distance between C and D. Meaning, ang gagawin lang natin dito, kailangan natin kunin yung length ng directed segment. Directed segment, which is CD. Then, square. Okay. Why CD? Kasi A, the length of this leg is the length of the directed line segment CB. Okay? Kumbaga, directed line segment CB is just A. Okay? Plus, how about for B? So we have the directed line segment CA. Directed line segment CA, and then square. Okay, so now let's have first this directed line segment C. Directed, meaning from C to B. C, B is not the same with B to C. Okay, kasi directed siya, merong direction. Going to positive direction, itong C, B. If we use BC, then we are talking of directed going to negative direction. Okay? So let's have C, B. Ito yung refer dito, directed line segment C, B. Directed line segment C to B. Okay. So, from, what's that? From the origin, or say, point C is x sub 1 units away from the y-axis. Tama ba? Point C is x sub 1 units. This is x sub 1 units from the y-axis. And point B is x sub 2 units away from the y-axis. So, to get the measure of this directed segment CB, we will subtract x sub 1 to x sub 2. Kaya, we have this. D is equal to the square root of the distance, or the measure of this directed line segment CB is x squared. X sub 2 minus x sub 1 square. Hindi na kasya yung sunod. Kasya natin. Kaya nasabi ko kanina, directed segment CB is not the same with directed segment BC. Kasi if we use BC, then we subtract x sub 2 to x sub 1. I hope clear yung point na yan. Now, how about directed segment CA? So, directed segment CA, ito yung sabi dito. Directed segment CA refers to this direction. Okay? Therefore, point C is y sub 1 units away from the x-axis. And point A is y sub 2 units away from the x-axis. So, since this is a directed segment, therefore, directed segment CA implies y sub 2 minus y sub 1. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1. Okay, and so we have this formula. Okay, this is known as the distance formula. And we can use this distance formula to find the distance between two points. So we'll make use of this distance formula to find the distance between point A and point B. This time, we'll no longer use point C. Kasi ito lang naman yung given. Okay? So let's label this as our point 1 and say this is our point 2. we can interchange. We can have this as point 2 and this is our point 1. The order does not matter here since yung quantity natin is naka-square. So if the quantity becomes negative, magiging positive din siya. Okay? So let's have the distance formula is equal to, so since we label point B is our point 2, therefore yung x sub 2 natin ay kukunin natin kay B. Since this is B is our point 2. So we have x sub 2, we are referring to this 1. Okay? 1 minus our x sub 1 is the x coordinate of point 1, which is minus 2. So we have 1 minus 2, that is 1 plus 2 squared. Okay. So what if ito yung point 1, ito yung point 2? Okay, therefore, ang x sub 2 natin ngayon is minus 2. Minus 2, negative 2, minus our x sub 1, which is 1, that becomes minus 3 squared. So they have the same answer. So, it does not matter kung alin dito yung point 1 or point 2. Okay? Plus, so we have y sub 2, this is our y sub 2, negative 1, minus our y sub 1 is positive 3 squared. Okay, so we have d is the square root of, this is 3 squared, that is 9, plus negative 1 minus this, negative 4 squared, 16. Okay, and so d is equal to the square root of 25, the positive square root, since this is distance, so that is 5 units. And we get the same answer with the first method that we use. Let us proceed to this topic, point on the line joining two points. So we have this theorem that says if point P with rectangular coordinates x, y is a point on the line joining point 1 with rectangular coordinates x sub 1 and y sub 1, and point 2 with rectangular coordinates x sub 2, y sub 2, and if P is located so that the distance from point 1 to P is equal to a fraction k of the distance from point 1 to P2, then to find the coordinates of point P, we'll use this formula. So to find the x coordinate of point P, we simply add x sub 1 and a fraction of the difference of x sub 2 and x sub 1. And to find y, we are to add y sub 1 and a fraction of the distance between y sub 2 and y sub 1. So now let's have this illustration to get a clearer understanding of this theorem. Now let point P be a point on the line joining points P sub 1 and P sub 2. And so point 1, the distance from point 1 to point P is a fraction. Okay? The distance of point 1 to point P is just a fraction of the distance from point 1 to point 2. So, we have this. Now, we are to construct a line segment A1 to P1. Say this corresponds to A1. This, say, I'll make use of green. This corresponds to A, and this corresponds to A2. So that directed segment A1 P1 is parallel to OY, and same with directed segment AP is parallel to OY, and directed segment A to P2, A sub 2, P sub 2 is parallel to directed segment OY. Then, by similar triangles, applying the concept of similar triangles, we find that the directed segment A1 to A, with respect to the directed segment of A sub 1 to A sub 2 is equal to K. Meaning, if we get the measure or the distance of this directed segment A1 to A, and then we get the ratio of the distance of A1 to A to the distance of A1 to A2, we get this fraction K. Meaning, A1 to the distance of A1 to A is a fraction of the distance of A1 to A2. In fact, we can derive this. We have A1, the distance of A1 to A is a fraction of the distance of A1 to A2. Okay. Now, we all know that the A1 is x sub 1 units away from the origin. A is x units away from the origin, and A2 is x sub 2 units away from the origin. Therefore, to get this to get the value of this x, which is the abscissa of point P, okay, the abscissa of point P, gagawin lang natin is, sorry, I get confused sa mga whiteboard pen. So, to get this abscissa of point P, we have x, the abscissa of point P, okay? Ang kailangan lang natin is, kailangan natin kunin yung distance ng A sub 1 from the origin, and that is x sub 1. Plus, para makuha natin itong x na to, which is the distance of A from the origin, we'll make use of this. Okay? Kumbaga, the distance of this directed segment plus the distance of this directed segment, we get the total distance of A away from the origin. Tama, di ba? Pag nakuha natin to, yung distance dito, i-add natin yung distance neto, makukuha natin yung kabuang distansya ng A away from the origin. And that distance of A away from the origin is our x. Okay? So, we have x is equal to x sub 1, the distance of a sub 1 from the origin, plus, how about here? So we have the distance of a sub 1 to a, that is a fraction of the distance of a sub 1 to a sub 2. So kaya we have a sub 1 to a. Okay, yun yung ibig sabihin kanina. To find x, we add the distance of a sub 1, that is x sub 1, and the distance of a sub 1 to a. Okay, so this one. So, yun. So we have x is equal to x sub 1, plus we all know that the distance of a sub 1 to a, the directed segment a sub 1 to a, is just a fraction of the distance from a sub 1 to a sub 2. Okay? And so we have x is equal to x sub 1 plus k times. Okay? Ngayon, this directed segment a sub 1 to a sub 2 means x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And so, we got this. Okay, so let's continue. P sub 1 is y sub 1 units away from the origin. P is y units away from the origin. And P sub 2 is y sub 2 units away from the origin. Now, applying similar triangle, I'll make use of that. The distance of the directed segment P1 to P with respect to the distance of P1 to P2 is equal to K, which is the fraction. Meaning, the distance of point 1 to P is a fraction of the distance from point 1 to P to point 2. And that is given in the theorem. Okay. So to find y, kasi ito yung aim natin dito, what's the value of y? What is the ordinate of point P? Given the coordinates of point 1 and point 2. So the ordinate of point P is equal to, okay, we have this, y sub 1 plus, so kailangan natin to, which is y sub 1 away from 0, and this one. Kaya pag na-add natin tong dalawa, makukuha natin yung distance ng y from the origin. Tama? And we all know that from here to this point here, that is the distance of point P of point 1, point P1 to point P. Tama? From here, that is point 1 to P. So yan. Which we all know a while ago that P1P is equal to K times P1 P2. Okay, so I'll erase this. Let's continue here. So we have y is equal to y sub 1 plus k, and this directed segment P1 to P2 means P1 to P2, we subtract y sub 1 to y sub 2. So we have this formula to find y. Let's have this example. Given point 1, which has a coordinates -2 and -1, and point 2, which has a coordinates +1 and +1, and a point with coordinates xy, which lies on the extended line joining point 1 and point 2. Find the coordinates of point P so that the distance of the directed segment P1 to P2 is the same as the distance of the directed segment P2 to P. So we have these 2 points. So if we connect this, now we have a theorem in geometry that given 2 points, we can create a line. Okay, so we have this line. Okay. Now we have this point P with coordinates xy. Nasabi, this point P lies on the extended line. If this is the line segment connecting P, point 1 and point 2, then point P lies on the extended line. So pag sinabi natin extended, pwedeng going to this direction or the other one. Kasi extension to ng line segment na to. Okay. So saan kaya nakapwesto itong point P na to? Is it in the first quadrant or is it in the third quadrant? So merong given dito na the distance of the directed segment P1 to P2. So that's directed segment. We are talking of directed segment, therefore P1 to P2 is the same as the distance of the directed segment from P2 to P. Therefore, this is the direction. So point P lies somewhere in quadrant 1, given na it lies on the extended line joining point 1 and point 2. Remember this. Therefore, what is our K in this problem? So it's clear. It is clear that point P is not on the line joining point 1 and point 2, di ba? Wala siya sa line kasi sabi dito lies on the extended line joining points 1 and points 1 and 2. And hindi din siya, we believe that point P is not on the line connecting point 1 and point 2. What I mean is, wala siya dito sa loob. Nasa labas siya. Because of this and because of this condition. There are 2 conditions that prove that point P is outside of the line joining these 2 points, but it lies on the extended line of these 2 points. Okay. See, we all know that point 1 to point 2 is a K fraction of point 1 to point 2. Tama? Oh, what I mean here is point 1 to point 2 is what fraction of point 1 to point 2? That is K. And point 2 to point P is what fraction of point 2 to point P? That is still K. Therefore, our K is equal to 2. Meaning, somewhere here, yung point P na hinahanap natin, wherein the fraction of the K fraction of this point 2 to P is ito nga, sabi kanina. Okay. Therefore, our K is 2. And so, I'm making use of the formula kanina. So you have x is equal to x sub 1 plus k times the quantity x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So, ito ba na? So our x sub 1 here, since this is directed, our x sub 1 is negative 2 plus our k is 2 kasi na-double siya ngayon because of this. That is 2. Then the difference of x sub 2 is 1 minus x sub 1 is minus 2, that is 2. We have negative 2 plus 2 times 3 is minus 2 plus 6, and x is 4. Therefore, sabihin natin this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so nasa 4 siya. How about ang y? So para sa y naman, we have y is equal to y sub 1 plus k times the quantity y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So we have our y sub 1 is negative 1 plus our k is 2 times the quantity y sub 2. Y sub 2 is 1 minus y sub 1, negative 1, so plus 1. So we have negative 1 plus 2 times 2, that is negative 1 plus 4, that is 3. So y is 3. So this one, say 2 and 3. Therefore, point P has an abscissa 4 and an ordinate which is 3. Okay, so sulat natin dito. That is, point P has a coordinates 4, 3. Now, because of this condition, ito yung nangyari. From negative 2, let's talk about x values muna, or mga abscissas ng 3 points na to. The distance from negative 2 to the next abscissa positive 1 is 3 units, diba? It is 1, 2, 3. And the distance of point 2 to point P is 3 pa din. So, 1, 1, 2, 3. So, kaya 3. And then, how about for y? For y naman, start tayo kay negative 1. So, from negative 1 to positive, from y equals negative 1 to y equals positive 1, that is 2. 1, 2. So, sa sunod na P natin, 1, 2. Because of this.